been 6 days since I finished Boyhood Island. It took me 2 days to finish, and now I could be a gun for hire, even if we're just dancing in the dark. The 4th volume of my struggle, Dancing in the Dark by Knausgård. I was so eager. I rattled through Boyhood Island, and I had my issues with it. I had my qualms. I didn't really know why he's still writing. How on earth do I still have 1,500 pages? What else can Knausgård give me? But I rattled through, so I thought, I can get this. I can get through this. Now, in the last video, you saw that I went to the library, but they were missing 2 books, this being one of them. So I went out and bought it. One thing we should get out of the way is that these new vintage edition covers are way better than the old one. Like, what is it? It is what it is. And when I finished it, I would like to shout out to the library because they did manage to send me the next copy of the same ugly edition. I was really hoping that it would be a different cover because it's horrendous. But now we've got Knausgård twice. Knausgård squared, if you will. Let's have a quick summary of what's happened before because the timeline jumps around quite often. First book, we deal with Knausgård growing with his father and then jumping forward when his father dies and Knausgård dealing with that. In the second book, we jump to where Knausgård leaves his first wife and falls in love with his second wife, Linda. The third book, we jump further back in time where we first meet 18-month-old Knausgård, but now we're really dealing with like pre-teen Knausgård into teen Knausgård. Now we have Knausgård fully formed, but not really. We've jumped forward in time, but not too much. He's 19. You might think, boy, we're jumping around. This book is the epitome of, boy, are we jumping around, because we are going left, right and centre in Knausgård's life. 19-year-old Knausgård wants to be a writer. Let's not have the one with the shiny cover. That's going to irritate everyone. And he wants to write. That's all he wants to. Oh my gosh, darn it. He just wants to.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine. But you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Where was I? Oh yes, right at the beginning of my sentence. Knausgård wants to write. He wants to sit down and write his first novel. He's going to start off with some short stories maybe just to get into the swing of it. That's all he wants to do. And predominantly he wants to be good at writing. And he says if he's not good, if he doesn't make a name for himself, if he's not successful through writing, he should just top himself. With that cheery notion aside, we're going to go to a small fishing town in the north of Norway, in Hafjord, where Knausgård picks up a job as a unqualified teacher because he needs money. He needs money. And that's the only reason why he's picked up this job, is so he has enough money to sustain himself, and when he's not working, he's going to be writing. I myself, when I finished my masters, went off to do the PGCE, which is a qualification to teach, and I went into schools doing secondary school English and was subsequently kicked off the course. Yeah, that was an interesting time. I actually did a video like as soon as I got kicked off the course because I was fuming. I'll put a clip here. It's like a green screen. So basically what happened is that I decided to follow my dream. From a young age I wanted to become a teacher. A lot of people who've watched the videos know that there's books everywhere. I'm quite an avid reader. I enjoy the analytical side, the processing. I also do poetry, if some of you may know that. But I've done some writing. Actually, I think in the vlogs I actually discussed when I was writing my first novel. Still hasn't been published. Hey ho. However, I decided to take the plunge. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to go into teaching. It's not to say that I didn't want to do secondary teaching. I actually did want to do secondary teaching. And the PGCE is the Postgraduate Certificate in Education over here in Wales. And that's the qualification you need to get to become a teacher. You could do QTS, but I just decided to do the PGCE. He's passionate about writing, but all the other subjects that he has to teach, he's not interested in. He's also petrified that he has to teach students English, and he knows that his English is not the best. Fully aware that he's going to be called out on it, and not by the teachers, by the students. And they do. Before we move on, I want to look at this from a different point of view. predominantly this side, where it states, all goes well to begin, but as the nights grow longer, his life takes a darker turn. Drinking causes him blackouts, his repeated attempts at losing his virginity end in humiliation, and to his great distress, he develops romantic feelings towards one of his 13-year-old students. Right, okay. Yes, Knausgård wants to write, but he has two vices that are holding him back. The first one being alcohol. He passes out midway through the day of his father's marriage to his stepmom, Uni. Like, he gets drunk a lot of times in this. And the second one are girls, where as a 19-year-old with insecurities but equally bashful, thinks he knows it all but doesn't really have any life experience, wants to be the man but equally still a boy and doesn't really know what he's doing in life. He fumbles around wanting to lose his virginity. He fumbles around girls. He has plans in his head of, okay, I think if I do this, if I'm speaking with this girl, that she'll like me, and should I invite her into my house? Should I invite her upstairs? What if my housemates are in? Like, how do I deal with this situation? And he has so much going on up here that the girls who seem to like him are almost waiting for him to invite it. He's so caught up in the logistics, the banalities, and the details that he doesn't do anything. And these girls just aren't interested. Now at this point you might go, Kieran, hang on, didn't you just mention like something about a 13-year-old girl? Yes, like the most transgressive thing in this book is that he develops romantic feelings towards one of the 13-year-old students, which does happen for all of like 5 pages. Nothing happens, it's just him fantasizing about these situations, which predominantly left him to write a book, which I assume is his first book. And in a strange turn of events, the girl who he's fantasizing about and her friend who he taught ring him up during the launch and say, like, can we come down? Like, we read the book. And Knausgård has to kind of go, yeah, well, like, it wasn't you I was thinking of. And the girls kind of go, yeah, like, you know. This kind of brought something up in me that I've been curious about this entire series so far, which is, what is fiction? What is auto-fiction? Like, what separates that from non-fiction? What makes it memoir? What makes it auto-fiction? Is this all fictional? Is Knausgård portraying a character of himself? Is he leaning into not like caricature, but just slightly eeping into character? I still don't really know about what Knausgård... Is he fabricated some things? I think it's truthful. I think Karl Ove Knausgård did fantasize, and he wrote this in order to be transparent, in order to understand his mindset, his state, and how that he's at this cusp of adult and child, that he's in this in-between, and what makes it right, what doesn't make it right. It's a bit of a head scratcher because I think it's truthful, but I don't know if it's honest. Ambiguity and this voyeuristic aspect of like really peeling off Knausgård's head and jumping in and just getting into all the dirty spaces in there. That's what's compelling about these books. There's a want to go, why are you telling me this? I don't know, like if he had written it out of the book, would that change his mindset? The difficulty here is that we could actually have a lot of conversation about this, but in a 500-page book, this is a small slither. Like, this isn't Lolita, this isn't My Dark Vanessa, it's not talking really about that. It's really a few pages within a tome. If the book doesn't revolve around that aspect of it, what is it revolving around? And you have two main things. First of all is one that I've mentioned, childhood and adulthood. First of all, the first thing I want to say is that I should never have gone to the course. I think it was about 5 of us actually who turned up on the day. I turned up in a suit, I was quite confident, and we had been told by the course leader to prepare an advertisement on why you want to be an English teacher. Me being me,
just decided to go, I'll just wing it on the day, not realise that the 4 other girls had actually prepared something. And I was just like, oh, yes, I've done an advert, and just, I don't know what I was talking about. I managed to get onto the course. I'll take it. I'll take it. I will take it.
Up until this moment, Knausgård has been looked after by his parents or his parent after they have divorced. He's never had to think about financially keeping himself stable. He's not had to venture out into the world, into the unknown, and do all the petty mundane things that adults do on a day-to-day basis that when you're a kid you don't really think about, like pay the bills and who's going to cook your food and how do you deal with people in your house that you live with, like your housemate. There's a freedom that's been unleashed. And I remember when I went to university and I had my student loan and I was working and I could just do what I want as long as I turned up to my lectures, which really weren't a necessity. I know people who didn't turn up for pretty much half of the term. I didn't have to go. If I wanted to just go to a pub all day and spend all my money, if I wanted to go to a restaurant or order takeaways and just burn a hole in my wallet, I could. No one was going to stop me. No one was going to tell me I couldn't do it. If I wanted to get into a really bad relationship, well, hey, it's on me. No one's there holding my hand being like, Kieran, think about this. You don't have that. And Knausgård's dealing with that. When he's teaching, that's exacerbated. He's 19. He's teaching kids who are 2 years younger than him. Really, there's not much difference between him and them, but he has this superiority just in age, even though he has no superior knowledge in what he's teaching them. And in fact, some of the kids know more than him.
I was kind of like this in a classroom scenario. I very much don't feel comfortable behind a camera for the most of the time. However, being in front of a student, 30 students who are all like 14, staring at you blissfully at your every single word, waiting to find some truth in the world, and then you realise you have no idea what synthesis is. What is synthesis? Who is John Steinbeck? What is the world made of? Is an Oxford comma acceptable? I don't know. Issue arises when I went to my second placement. How do I describe a school without saying it? The school is centred around a heifer surrounded by cocks. And look, they published that all the kids wear that, so I'm not saying where they're coming from, but it was a cow surrounded by cocks on a bridge. That's all I'm saying. You'll be able to figure it out if you know what I'm talking about, or if you spoke to me about this situation. But on my second day, I got told by my mentor that I actually would fail. No one who's gone into this school for English ever passes. They never pass. They never succeed. They will fail or you'll quit. Brilliant. Imagine going to a job interview, getting the job, and then being told, hey, where do you want to be in 5 years? Oh, you know, I'd really like to go. Because you'll quit. You'll quit or we'll fire you. No one ever makes it to 5 years. That didn't put me in the best of places. So the next day I got called into the office by the headmistress to be told I was being escorted off the building. And I had to speak to my university. I spoke to the university and was basically told by my course leader, and I do not care if she sees this, but basically withdraw and quit the course. Hadn't been told what I had done yet. What I had done was write a poem from 4 years ago that had been published. That is it. And this, I have racked my head around this so many times in order to understand. Now remember, I wrote this about 4 or 3 years ago. I'm not entirely sure. I should check, but I do not care at this point. I was in university. We were told by our lecturers, you know, get out there. Do the things you want to do. If you want to write, get your writings out there. So I wasn't writing for kids. I was writing for adults. I'm interested in what I'm interested in, what I have gone through in life, and what I want to tell people.
When he's not teaching, he goes to his mum's house and divulges how tyrannical living with his dad is, and she doesn't know about that. Everything that was discussed in Boyhood Island has seemed to go amiss to Knausgård's mum. She didn't know that Knausgård was treated in that way. She didn't know that Ingvar, Knausgård's brother, took the brunt of the father's force. She doesn't know that. When he visits his dad, we are seeing his slow intoxication with alcohol, but equally we're seeing him find love through Uni. The parallel here is that as Knausgård is starting his new life, as is his father is starting a new relationship, a new love life, a new family. Let's stay with the father a bit more, because we are going to shoot forward after the father's dead. And Knausgård finds diary entries, he finds scrapbooks, he finds writings of his father that document his day, how he felt, how much he drank. And Knausgård doesn't really know why he details his own drinking. No one knew about these scraps until after he had died. Who he had met is also documented, and just snippets through the day. For those who have watched this series, The My Struggle and My Struggle, from the beginning, this might ring a bell. In every single book so far, someone is documenting something mundane, truthfully, honestly, transparently. And Knausgård is drawn to this type of writing. All of them are the inspirations and really the precursors to what this book series is. This is Knausgård dealing with the mundane, with the boring, trying to tell it as truthfully as he possibly can. Scraps, scrolls, diary entries all document a moment in time. They all document a mind state. They all document a person. They are that person at that given time, on that given day, how they felt, their true reflections there.
If you want to write, do it. As teachers, and I'm meant to stand in front and say, look, this is what this poet's doing, this is what this author's doing, but I'm not allowed to do that. That doesn't sit right with me. Sadly, one headmistress's decision has ruined my career as a teacher. And where do I go on from this? I don't know. I'm pretty much going to go back into what I was previously doing, which was just in an office. Yes, I will be able to carry on my works. Yes, I will be able to do a YouTube. But is that really what I wanted to do? No.
Knausgård is not adverse to documenting things in painstaking detail. Within this book, we have a very lengthy session of him making coffee. That went on for a few pages. Even in A Man in Love, we have a 50-page party scene that just keeps going. Besides Knausgård's coffee routine in work, we also have pages of him teaching in class, trying to engage with students he's never seen before. We see him having dinner with his family, and he has to explain to his grandmother that the money she had given him to split with his brother, that he has just simply forgot. We have Knausgård dealing with the mental turmoil of asking his grandmother, remember that you said you were going to give me some apples before? Pages out of all the books so far, Dancing in the Dark flit. We got flashbacks, we got flash forwards, we are all over the place. Now, you get to the 310-ish page. I wasn't ready for it. I've only experienced something like this once, and it was Kierkegaard's Either Or, where we just switch attention and talk about Don Juan for 200 pages. I was not prepared for Knausgård's 200-page flashback of something that I did not care about. Now I just want to summarise something here. How Knausgård looks on this cover is how I felt reading this book.
Things happen in life and you can't do anything about it. You feel in a really bad point, but you'll be able to discuss that. You'll be able to move on from that. You'll be able to discuss in years to come why those things happened. You'll be able to look back on hindsight, look at the situation you were in and be able to unpick it. But in the moment, you will feel as though you're drowning in something you can't get away from. I definitely feel like that in this moment. And I don't have a career. I don't have a job. Actually, I don't have a job because I'm unemployed. I will keep writing. and hopefully soon I will be able to find a way in order to teach. What that is, I do not know, but in some way, shape or form I will be able to teach.
Painstaking. It is mundane. I know that's what he writes about, and that's his prose, but there is nothing in here that I even cared about. Not even that Knausgård has quite a good music sense, and he's a teenager. Of course he likes music. Growing up at this time, David Bowie, Simple Minds, Talking Heads, the greats. He's even lucky enough to have a job for a newspaper, writing columns about music, like everything that I think most teenagers who absolutely adore music would love to do. Aside from music, he's reading all the time. But Knausgård tells you right at the beginning, the books that he reads, the books that he is drawn to are the ones where it's people dealing in boring situations and having to make something great of it, like Jack Kerouac's On the Road. Who am I to argue? If that's what Knausgård wants, I mean, this is the book series. He wanted to be a great author. He's an international phenomenon. I suppose you have to give him a clap because he's done what he set out to do. But guess what? I don't care. Zadie Smith, during this part of the publication, said that she needed this book like crack. Like, this is literary crack. Do you know the issue with that is? Is that people who are on crack won't admit that it's bad. This was absolute drivel. I slogged my ass through this book. Now, I'm not one of these people who go, oh guys, this book was amazing. It was 700 pages and I read it in 24 hours. Wow, it was really good because it was so quick to read. Like, I think you can have like really good books that take a really long time to read. This was just really crap. I felt every damn page of this book. And you know how Knausgård wants to lose his virginity? Oh boy, do we get it right at the end. We have the most anticlimactic climax. I don't even want to look at this book. I hate it. I hate the cover. I hate the prose. I hate the story. I hate that I got a 200-page flashback that I didn't even care or wanted. I didn't even need it. I didn't even need it. I don't care. I understand about his father. I understand about his mother. I understand about him because I've read 3 other books. And I tell you now, I can see the other 2 books continuing on. And I know everything by now, Knausgård. Everything that you're saying isn't interesting. I know it. There's nothing more that you can tell me. There's nothing more that you can tell me. After reading this book, I have like 1,500 pages to go, and I have no idea like what you need to tell me. Like, why isn't this ending? Why hasn't it ended? It's kind of like, do you know when you're in a funeral and you have the like distant like uncle who like you never really know from like your mother's side, and he's just like, oh, remember back in the day, and just like spools at you, and you're like, I don't even like, you've covered this. Like, you've covered it. Why are we still talking about? Why am I in a room with you? Like, at the time, you're thinking you're doing, like, a really good deed, and then they just keep, like, wanging on at you. And you're like, oh my god, I realise why everyone has, like, avoided you, and why no one speaks about you. Like, no one speaks about this book. No one speaks about this book. It's because it's rubbish. It's because it's rubbish, people. Because you don't need to read it. Because I learned nothing. I've learned nothing. I've learned nothing. I've learned that David Bowie and Talking Heads are good artists. And I knew that. I think most people knew that. Come on, Overdrive. Whoop, whoop. We're going to the Testaments Club. It's a 2. It's a 2 out of 10. It's a 2 out of 10. I have 2 more books to read. I got a family. I've given up, like, my life for this. And why? Why?